So I'm upgrading my outdoor shower here. This project will be 3 videos, and this first one is going to be the foundation and the first set of logs. I'm going to use round timber framing techniques, the Japanese style. Pretty cool. So RV launch pad's on hold for a little bit, but for some reason, as I check this level, it looks, according to the level, it's not level, and so I keep building this pier up, and I end up building it way too high. So I keep adding more rocks and dirt and packing stuff in here and then checking it again. I finally get it like way above what it needs to be. And I do that on the other side as well. So this 4x4 that I'm using to judge my level was my mistake. I ended up building way too high on these back piers, way higher than I needed to. And then I build this side the same way. I go 3 blocks high, which wasn't necessary. And then I still haven't figured out my mistake yet. I mean, at this point, it definitely looks wrong when you eyeball it, but I hadn't actually realized the mistake. So here I'm adding more cinder blocks to this side, and then placing the foundation rock on top. And I finally used the string, and I realize I'm way above what I need to be. And that prompted me to get baling twine, and I build these individual measurement lines. I tie a rock on each end of the line and stretch them across the foundation, and that'll be how I get everything exactly perfect. Sorry about the low audio coming up in this next section. It was cold that night, and I didn't want to be too loud and obnoxious for neighbors, so it's kind of hard to hear me. Shit ain't square or level. This back pier, I built it up too high. I built both of them up too high. I've already dropped this one back down. It's pretty close to being level with the I don't know, like, I guess this would be north, the north pier. That would be south. So south still, I'm going to drop that down 2 blocks. I'm going to take those 2 top blocks off. And I think that's going to be pretty close. I can add I can raise it on those, kind of finesse it up. And then, let's see, north, south. So this needs to come out like a little bit more. The diagonal of this square is 10 feet. That's what I'm gonna like build from. If both of these diagonals equal 10 feet, then I have a perfect square, which is like 7.1 feet on each leg of the perimeter. So all I have to do is get each corner level respectively with each other, and for the diagonals to equal 10 feet, and then I have a foundation to start building on, a square foundation that's plumb. Shit ain't as easy as it sounds. So I'm just going to talk over myself here. You can't hardly hear, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing. I don't know how you're supposed to do this in construction. I'm sure it's not correct, but I'm going to have to take these stones up over and over and over, and I need to get them labeled. So I'm just using the compass headings. So the north stone, I put an N on it, so I put a letter for each of the compass headings on each of the 4 stones. And so that'll give me the reference for which one's which whenever I'm picking them up and taking them to fit them against the wood and putting them back over and over. And what I'll do from there is I'll establish a center point on the stone and establish the direction that the stone will face. So even though the stone isn't square, when I cut these mortise and tenon logs to set down on them, I have to get that correct. So I'm just labeling everything here with the compass, and then I'll establish the center line and the direction of the facing of it and stuff. I'll probably get away with just marking the diagonal, but I like to overkill. So these are my south stones. So now here you can see my OCD is starting to flare up on me. I'm marking each of the little rocks that are connected to my measurement strings so that like I don't miss any placement. So all the south stones will be positioned, and I don't know where, like now I can go real crazy with it. Like the south stone that connects to the east stone I'm not sure if I should label it like that so that I consistently put the same string measurement back in the same position. I guess I don't have to label the east on the south stone if I have the east labeled on the east stone. But I'll mark these baling twines, I'll measure them properly and get them marked, so that'll really make it foolproof on getting this thing positioned right. So in this, what I'm doing is I'm getting my measurement for the baling strings. So I'm laying out 10 foot on the tape measure, and then I go and get the respective string rocks, and I don't realize it at the time I'm doing this, but so I'm going to use a Sharpie and mark the baling twine a little bit in from the rock, and then I go to the other side and get a 10-foot mark on the baling line. So that'll be my measurement for my diagonal. So I'll have two. I'll have a north and south diagonal at 10 feet and an east and west diagonal at 10 feet. So I'm getting those marks made, but the Sharpie doesn't really work well. I'll have to end up redoing that. I have to redo so much here. So if anybody knows a good knot that won't come undone, please let me know. I was just tying these strings around these rocks with like a square knot, and that baling twine works loose as those rocks are dangling and you're moving them around, and that baling twine just keeps working loose on me. So I'll have to end up redoing that, and I come up with a new method to mark instead of a Sharpie. I end up using scotched painter's tape and just put some tape on the part of the line. It's blue, you'll see here coming up. And then for the knots, I just tied like 4 square knots on this twine, and it was still trying to work loose. So I ended up wrapping each of the rocks with a bunch of the painter's tape and just completely wrapping the rocks up. And it seems like it's working better than not having the tape on there. So that's going to be how I succeed here with my measurements. The corner, or the distance between the perimeter of the square, each leg is like 7.1 feet. It's a little bit over 7 feet. And that's just the math. If you do the mathematical equation, if you have a perfect square with a 10-foot diagonal, that you can calculate the legs. So that's what I'm going to build my square from. And I don't realize this yet either at this point in the thing, so I'm going to have to redo so much. But I ended up feeling like there would be some sag in the middle of this structure with the way that I had planned on setting these 7-foot timbers down onto these rocks and scribing the contours of the rock onto the log, so the log would set nice and flush on the rock. That was my plan, and I started second guessing that, because I just feel like it would be stronger to have a post scribed onto the rock. So here's the next day. You can see that I'm starting to remove all of the buildup that I have done. So it was a complete waste of effort, because with this new method, I need the ground to be lower, because these posts are like 2 feet tall, and that's going to sit on the rock, and then the beams, the 7-foot beams, will be mortise and tenoned onto the posts. So I got to get all of that work pulled back out of there, and I mean, it's either laugh or cry. So I'm laughing about it. I'm learning a lot of mistakes along this first time doing this, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch more. But I was driving home, and I passed one of these Asplund logging chipper trucks, and he was sitting there on the side of the road, and you can see the logs that he gave me. I just pulled up and asked him if he had any logs, and I told him what I was doing. Well, he went out and cut these for me and gave them to me. So I got 7 of these logs, and I'll build the mortise into one face of that and scribe the contours of the stone on the other side and set that onto the stone and drop my beams. I'll put tenons in the beams and drop those onto these posts. So I think that's going to be a lot better. So here's the operation I'm putting in place to do all of my measurements on my string rocks. So I get this 4x4 set up here temporarily, and then I'm going to stretch my string rocks over. I mark on the beam where the 10 foots and the 7.1 feet are. So then I stretch these strings out, and I go through the process of I'm having to retie all the knots. A couple of them were too short, and I had to like redo them. There you can see all the blue rocks now. I've just wrapped them up with a bunch of Scotch tape, and got all the string rocks marked for distance. And so now I'm starting to try to build this thing square, and I didn't get it. I had to give up. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. I'll figure it out, but yeah. So I'm debarking these logs here. I'll get those all cleaned up, and then I'll start doing measurements on them and figuring that out too. looks pretty darn square. About to test the diagonals. Center of the rock. Both my arrows touch. When you eyeball it, it looks like a square. Center rock. This is east rock is centered. North rock. Pretty close. I hate to keep pushing it. West rock. Boom. All right, let's check these Yaggies. Let's check these Yaggies. All right, south. Just that for now. North. Pretty damn close. All right. East. Kind of funky. Weight this thing down. You know what? Let's do west first. Oh, I think it's going to be right because it looks square. It looks pretty damn square. Not quite. So I'm about 2 inches out of square on the east rock. I'm about 2 inches out of square. So here's the diagonal. And it should be touching these arrows right here. So I gotta figure out what do I need to move here?
exactly sure how the Japanese did it, but I think I'm gonna do it like this. And I'll just scribe this shit like a scribe. You just got to get it balanced, centered. And then scribe. This one's going to be a tough one, but man, this one's going to be real tough. I'm not sure how to do it. And I am sure that I'm going to have to probably make multiple cuts. And I can't have anything impeding the marker. I gotta have contact with the rock all the way around. Oh, I don't know.
video is finally over. Over an hour's worth of time-lapse footage. It's pretty level. A little bit of a slope this way because eventually there's going to be a shower in here, and so I'll have a natural drain over this way. I'd say the biggest value to me, having never done this, was these pre-measured plums. Got these arrows here, and these are preset distances I used with tape. So that really helped get things square. If this is the first time you guys are building a structure, I would recommend not building your posts all the way up. I'm gonna cut these off here and just make the floor. And the idea is, I know it's not square and I know it's not plumb. So if I get the floor finished, then I can start from scratch basically and build 4 walls. And even if it's jacked up, even if this floor is jacked up, I can just bring the wall in a little bit to cut out the unsquare nature. You know, so the walls flush here and it's so unsquare. You know, I've got a big gap here. If you were to use these posts all the way up, whatever mistakes you have are going to be transposed clear up onto your walls. So, and you know, I think that was pretty smart to you know, to not try to make the whole thing in one go. It's pretty solid. I mean, it's got a little bit of a bend in it, but I'm gonna block in these sections with some more wood, and so yeah. A lot of water comes down this hill when it rains, and this is the big root that has been dripping water constantly. So I don't want to fill in this area. I don't want it to always be wet. So I've got to figure out something to do here. I might just dig a drainage ditch out down through here and just give the water a way to escape. But this is the first video, and there'll be 2 more. The next one will be the walls and maybe the roof, and then the last one will be installing the shower and probably the wood stove and the sauna. So, fun times. I just heard a crash out there in the darkness. I don't know what that's all about.